Welcome to Deep Dive. Today we're taking a closer look at something pretty significant happening in U.S. immigration and investment. We're talking about the EB-5 investor visa program. Our mission for this deep dive is really to unpack the recent news. You've probably heard the EB-5 unreserved visa cap has been hit for fiscal year 2025. We want to explain exactly what that means, why it happened maybe a bit earlier than some expected, and most importantly, what prospective investors really need to know right now. So whether you're maybe directly affected by this or perhaps thinking about this route or even just curious about how these economic immigration paths work, we're aiming to break down the key details into clear, actionable insights. Hopefully you'll walk away feeling well informed without getting too bogged down in the technical stuff.
Exactly. And what's interesting here, I think, is that this isn't just some routine update. It really signals some fundamental shifts, potentially, in how investor immigration is working. Understanding these dynamics is absolutely crucial for anyone navigating this path. It really calls for, strategic planning.
That's a great point. Sounds like strategy is key. So maybe let's start with the absolute basics, just for anyone who needs or quick refresher. What exactly is the EB-5 Immigrant Investor Program?
Okay, sure. At its core, the EB-5 program offers foreign nationals a way to get U.S. permanent residency, green card. They do this by making a pretty substantial capital investment into a U.S. business. But it's not just about putting money in. Critically, that investment has to create, or sometimes preserve, a minimum number of jobs. Specifically, it's 10 full-time jobs for qualifying U.S. workers. The whole idea is to boost the U.S. economy through that investment and job growth. Now, when we talk about these visas, there are two main types or categories. You've got the unreserved category. That's kind of the general pool available to qualified applicants pretty much anywhere. And then you have these reserved allocations. These are specifically set aside, earmarked really, for projects in certain areas, like rural areas, places with high unemployment, or maybe major infrastructure projects. And this difference, reserved versus unreserved, it's not just a detail. It's absolutely key to understanding what's happening right now. It really dictates how visas are handed out and, how fast they get used up. The government tries to steer investment this way.
Okay, that makes sense. A clear picture there. So it's this direct pathway, investment, jobs, green card. Sort of a win-win economic idea. But what happens when that pathway gets bottlenecked, like it seems to have now? Can you walk us through the specifics? This annual cap, how does it work, and what does this recent announcement really mean?
Right, the bottleneck. That's a good way to put it. The major development we're focusing on is the effective September 17th, 2025. USCIS, that's U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, they've confirmed it. The annual limit, the cap, for unreserved EB-5 visas for this fiscal year, FY 2025, it's been reached, fully used up. So what that means practically is that issuing new unreserved EB-5 visas is on hold, temporarily. No new visas in that specific category will be given out between now and September 30th, 2025, which is the end of the fiscal year. It's like a pause button has been hit. But importantly, the program itself isn't shut down. It's set to resume on October 1st, 2025. That's when the new fiscal year, FY 2026, kicks off and a whole new batch of visa numbers becomes available. Think of it like an annual budget of visas. Once this year's budget for that category is spent, you wait for next year's budget.
Okay, so a temporary pause for the unreserved category just for the next couple of weeks, not a full stop. That distinction is probably really important for a lot of people listening. But still, even a temporary halt like this, hitting mid-September, that must cause some real stress, right? What are the immediate sort of challenges, psychologically or logistically, for people who are maybe just about to file or are expecting news?
Oh, absolutely. You've hit on a really crucial point there. For many, this isn't just a small delay. It can feel like a sudden wrench in very carefully made plans. Plans that often involve entire families, maybe moving kids for school. Logistically, it means if you are an investor ready to file your I-526E petition under the unreserved category, well, you can still file, but you won't get immediate visa processing towards the green card until October 1st, assuming numbers are available then. For some, that could mean maybe missing project deadlines or needing to sort out financing extensions. And emotionally, yes, it definitely injects uncertainty, frustration. Especially if you've been working on this for months, maybe even years. The timing just before the fiscal year ends really amplifies that impact.
And this pause happened before the fiscal year actually ended on September 30th.
Yeah.
That seems noteworthy. What were the factors that led to the cap being hit seemingly so quickly.
Hitting it mid-September feels a bit unusual.
Yeah, it does feel a bit early. There are a couple of key things going on, really interconnected factors. First, just consistently high demand for EB-5 visas generally. Traditionally China was the big source of applicants, but in recent years we've seen really significant growth from other countries too, India, Vietnam, others. So the interest is more global now, and that naturally increases the competition for every single unreserved visa slot available. It's like more people trying to get through the same door. Second factor, and this is where it gets particularly interesting and maybe a bit complex, unused reserved visas from previous fiscal years, let's say from FY 2023, those were actually rolled over. They were added into the unreserved pool for this fiscal year, FY 2025. Now, the policy idea behind that is probably to make sure all possible visas get used eventually, but the effect is, well, it can create a bit of a boom and bust situation. It boosts the number of available unreserved visas initially, which might look good, but then it causes them to get used up much faster, accelerating the exhaustion. It makes long-term planning really tricky for investors. Imagine finding extra concert tickets from last year's show and adding them to this year's sale. More tickets available at the start, sure, but the sold out sign goes up way sooner because of the rush. And these rules about the set-asides and how unused reserved visas can be carried forward, they're actually laid out in the EB-5 Reform and Integrity Act of 2022, the RIA, as it's often called. That act brought in these set-asides to encourage investment in targeted areas. But this rollover mechanism, specifically moving unused reserved visas to the unreserved category, it has this significant and sometimes hard to predict impact on availability and timelines. So yeah, it's a mix. High demand, diversifying demand, plus these specific legislative rules interacting.
Wow, that rollover effect is quite nuanced. It really shows how policy decisions and market demand can clash or interact, I guess, creating these immediate, maybe unintended consequences for applicants, like a domino effect, as you said, from last year impacting this year. Okay, so with this pause now in effect for the unreserved category, who specifically feels the pinch the most? What does it mean practically for different groups of people caught in this?
Right, the impact isn't uniform. The main group affected right now are those prospective investors who are literally about to file under the unreserved category. They can file the petition, but again, the visa availability for the green card under that category is paused until October 1st. Now, for people already somewhere in the pipeline, maybe their petition is approved, but they're waiting for the visa interview or adjustment, it is absolutely critical for them to know, is my petition based on a reserved project or an unreserved one? Because visas under those reserved categories, rural, high unemployment infrastructure, they might still be available. They operate under separate limits. So that could be an alternative path potentially that hasn't hit its ceiling yet. Another group feeling this sharply, often, are applicants from countries with really large backlogs historically. Think India and China. Because of the sheer volume of applicants from these countries, they already face long waits due to per-country limits on visas each year. So while this pause on unreserved visas affects everyone in that category, for someone from India or China whose priority date, that's basically their place in the queue based on when USCIS first accepted their petition. If their priority date is near or past the current cutoff date published by the State Department, that's the date determining who's eligible for a visa now for that country. Well, this early exhaustion of the unreserved pool can mean even longer delays for them. Even when October 1st comes, their progress depends heavily on those cutoff dates moving forward, which can be painfully slow when there's a big backlog. This just adds another layer of waiting.
That really highlights the complexity, especially with priority dates and cutoff dates. It sounds incredibly stressful for those applicants. So it begs the question, what can applicants actually do right now to prepare for October 1st, or just to navigate this whole situation more strategically? It sounds like just waiting isn't the best approach.
Absolutely not. Proactive steps are definitely key. First, probably the most basic but essential. Keep a close eye on official announcements, particularly the State Department's monthly visa bulletin. That's where they announce the cutoff dates and confirm when the FY 2026 unreserved numbers actually become available for use. Stay plugged in. Second, use this time, if you're preparing to file, to get all your documentation absolutely perfect. Really nail it down. This isn't just gathering papers. It means ensuring everything is complete, accurate, and totally ready to go the minute that window reopens. We're talking detailed project info, solid proof of where your investment funds came from, a comprehensive business plan, clear evidence showing how the job creation requirement will be met. Being ready to move fast and efficiently is crucial when the quota resets, especially in a competitive environment. Don't give them any reason for delays on your end. Third, and this is really important, if you might qualify, seriously look into those EB-5 set-aside categories, the ones for rural areas, high unemployment areas, or infrastructure projects. Like we discussed, these have their own separate visa allocations. They often have less immediate demand than the general unreserved pool. It could offer an alternative, maybe even a faster path if visas are still current in those categories. Don't just assume the unreserved category is your only option. Explore it. And finally, look, given how complex this all is, with the laws constantly evolving, the potential for bureaucratic hiccups, getting professional advice, like from an experienced immigration lawyer who specializes in EB-5, is highly, highly recommended. They can help you understand the nuances of the Reform and Integrity Act, spot potential problems in your application, check if you're eligible for a set-aside category, and ultimately just help you navigate the process more effectively and increase your chances of success. They can also give you a realistic assessment of timelines based on your situation and priority date. It's often about strategic positioning, not just form filling.
Okay, so the keywords sound like preparation, staying informed, exploring all your options, including those set-asides, and definitely getting expert guidance. It really feels like a time for active, smart decision-making, not just sitting back. So just to quickly recap what we've covered, the main news is the unreserved EB-5 investor visa allocation for fiscal year 2025. It's been fully used up as of September 17th. This triggers a temporary pause. No new unreserved green cards issued until October 4, 2025. That's when the new fiscal year starts, bringing fresh visa limits. This mainly impacts those filing under the unreserved category, particularly from high-demand countries. And we learned that this early exhaustion was partly driven by high demand, but also this interesting rollover of unused reserve visas from previous years, making readiness and strategy super important now.
Exactly. And looking ahead, based on these trends, the sustained global demand, the impact of that rollover mechanism, it seems pretty likely, I'd say there's a strong possibility, that demand could exhaust the new FY 2026 cap quickly as well. This really suggests that timing is going to be absolutely critical for many investors in the upcoming year, this early cap situation. It might not just be a one-off flip, it could signal a sort of maturing, more competitive market for EB-5. Where, strategic foresight, adaptability, they aren't just nice to haves anymore. They're pretty much essential. The real question for investors now maybe is, are you just reacting to the rules as they change, or are you trying to anticipate the next turn in this evolving landscape?
That's a powerful thought to end on. We really hope this deep dive has given you, our listeners, a much clearer understanding of this important subject, and hopefully equipped you with some valuable insights for whatever your connection is to the EB-5 program.
All the best, and we will meet again with another important matter again.